Namaskar, I'm Harpreet Kaur and I welcome you all to our live and interactive session. You're watching us on PM eVidya channels 6 to 12 and also on our YouTube handle NCERT Official. Well, this is our 5-day 5-hour online training program on social media safety. This program is brought to you by CIET NCERT in collaboration with Cyber Peace Foundation, that is CPF. Now, when we utter the word social media, everybody's eyes light up because almost everybody has their presence on the same. Now, what exactly social media is and what kind of impact it is leaving on society, on people. So, this is what we are going to discuss in today's session. As such, if you talk about social media, then it refers to those websites and applications through which we can share the content and we can connect with others and engage in various forms of communication. But it has a lot of dimensions to it, and that is why social media safety is of utmost importance. So this is going to be our theme for this week training program. Today is day 1 of the training session and the topic of day 1 is very relevant. This is the digital public square, understanding social media and its impact. So if you have questions related to the topic, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can give us a call on 8800440559. We also have a dedicated email ID for you, that is training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in, and you can always ask relevant questions on our YouTube handle NCERT Official. Since it's a training program, there is going to be an assessment by the end of the training session, yes, on the last day. If you wish to attempt the assessment and if you score 70% or more than that, you will be granted a certificate. For assessment and the guidelines related to the same, you can always log on to our CIET website through which you can collect all the necessary information. We are in the process of updating our website, so please make sure that you keep on checking it. Now, who's there with us today for this session and for sharing this information? We are joined by our expert, Miss Vaishali Bhagwat. So, please join me in welcoming her. Ma'am, namaskar and very warm welcome to you.
Namaskar, thank you.
I would like to tell everybody that ma'am is advocate. She is cyber law and data protection specialist, and ma'am is also independent legal practitioner from Pune, Maharashtra. Now, ma'am, this is such a wide topic that you have taken up today. It has a lot of aspects to it, lot of dimensions to it. So before you delve deep into your presentation, I request you to kindly offer us a glimpse of what exactly you will be covering in the session today.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for having me on this program and on your channel, and I'm really excited to share my insights about how social media is getting used by all of us and what are pros and cons and whether there are any risks related with social media use. So if you see in the last about 10 years, social media has really transformed from what was a personal space of communication to a space where it is being used for public discourse.
Yes.
It is building identities and there is an information flow. So we need to look at the good parts of it, the risks and also the regulation, and that is what I intend to cover in this 1 hour.
Right. And ma'am, now I request you to kindly go ahead with your presentation and there will be questions and we will take them in the end.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
So as the name suggests, we are going to talk about social media and compare it with the public square concept that we had for a time immemorial. So if you all remember, earlier before the digital media really took over our lives, where were we meeting to discuss, where were we meeting to exchange our ideas? It was generally either in some form of an open public square, in a meeting room, in common spaces where we were exchanging our thoughts, engaging in debates which were sometimes healthy, sometimes unhealthy, but there was a space where we could exchange thoughts and build our personalities and our thoughts around it. There was so much of learning in these public square that was happening. Now this public square has really shrunk, the physical public square has really shrunk, and now we have been pushed onto the digital medium where if I have to look at a parallel of what is a public square in the digital medium, it is nothing but the social media that we use, and that is
Okay.
what is now being used to influence society, democracy, and also individual behavior.
Hmm.
Can we go to the next? As I earlier said, the public square is no longer a physical space. It is the social media platform that we use, and there are various types of social media platforms. And I'm going to take you through how the social media also developed over the period of time till now. We are into the age of Meta and
Hmm.
various other highly interactive social media platforms, which also now has a very big part of artificial intelligence built into it, and we also need to understand how that is affecting the way we are communicating with each other and as a community and a society as a whole.
Hmm.
So earlier we had Twitter, now X, Facebook, Instagram, we have Reddit and YouTube, which serve as hubs for public discourse. They enable instant communication, mass mobilization. I'm going to talk about all this in detail in the coming slides, and a widespread sharing of ideas, opinions, and movements. And that is what makes social media so powerful. It is influencing society, it is influencing democracy, and we all need to be so much aware of how we are contributing to this influence. Either we are contributing, or at times we are getting manipulated, and we need to be aware of both the effects of how these social media platforms, these mass communication platforms, are having on us. The another very the strength of these platforms are they are cross border, multicultural, multilingual, multi-geographical platforms, and there is no longer a barrier of, let's say, a jurisdiction or a boundary of any country. At any point of time you can just talk to any person across the globe, and that is the amazing power social media has brought into our lives. Some area of concern now, if we have to look at it, is the public space is no longer a free democratic space, if I can say so,
Hmm.
because it is owned by private organizations. So regulating these private organizations become very important. The way we have constitutional freedoms which protect us from government interference, because we are living in a democratic society, we should have similar guardrails which now are getting built in regulation, where even the private corporations are not given excess powers who can use our conversations either to their advantage or to our detriment to influence opinions, thoughts, and our democratic way of the way we think in a democratic country. A quick look, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but a very quick look of how all this developed. So, way back in 1960, you all may remember that this internet was born in a small military lab, and that internet was named as ARPANET. It had a limited capability of two machines being able to talk to each other, even if when the public infrastructure the infrastructure is no longer in existence. So let's say a building is bombed and the infrastructure is no longer in place. However, the communication lines remained open because of this internet, which was born in 1960. And very quickly, in quick succession, we saw a lot of development. The email came in 1971. The World Wide Web came in 1990. The World Wide Web that we see today and what it was there in 1990 was very different. In 1990, it was like a notice board. We could put up information, but there was no interaction. Then the first real social media platform was launched in 1997 called the 6 Degrees. The 6 Degrees social media platform actually allowed people to connect, talk to each other, build profile the way Facebook did, but Facebook could monetize it. 6 Degrees could not monetize it, and eventually it had to be closed down. The company had to be closed down. And then 2000 onwards, we saw the social media boom, starting from Orkut. If I'm sure some of you remember your Orkut
Yeah.
days, And then now we have really progressed into meta and artificial intelligence. For example, Facebook, Instagram, and more details on the next slide. Also, when we had all these platforms like 6 Degrees and MySpace and Orkut in 2004, the mobile communication revolution was, if I can say, in the early stages. And therefore, mobile communication was not so rampant. And all this was happening, we used to use these platforms on computers or our laptops. The mobiles and the tab market had not developed at that time, and hence even that time communication was limited, it was slow, it was not all pervasive as the way we look at communication today in social media platforms. But this actually quickly changed when the telecom revolution also really happened very aggressively since the past 10 to 15 years. And now we'll see it on the next slide as to what all apps came into place that now we can use them because of the uh, the telecom revolution. Go to the next slide, please. This social media timeline actually is a bit more in detail, but almost I have talked about this in the earlier slide. So if you see, 2002 saw LinkedIn, 2001 6 Degrees closed, 1997 6 Degrees had started. As I said, it could not monetize it. It had amazing features, but perhaps they did not have commercial. The makers did not have adequate commercial sense to monetize it, and it closed in 2021. But we saw LinkedIn coming in 2022, Twitter in 2006, MySpace in 2007, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat really were game changers between 2015, 2017, 2022 and 23, when Meta took over Facebook as well as WhatsApp as well as Instagram. All that is now under one umbrella. And now with AI and AR, VR and the mobile communication revolution that we all are experiencing, let me tell you, this has just exploded. And actually, I need not tell you that without even knowing, maybe these facts and figures and the timelines, we all have been sucked into this explosion. We are now a party to this. There will not be a single individual who has not been touched by social media communication or the digital communication, so to say. We go to the next, please. I actually did cover all this while I spoke on the earlier slide, and we'll go to another slide, which is perhaps more intuitive in terms of how the users are using social media communication. We'll go to the next. So if you look at this slide, the figures are really mind-boggling, and still I feel there is not adequate representation because perhaps the sample set was not as good as what it should have been. For example, what they have mapped is how many hours do one user spend on social media. Now just ask yourself that. It is definitely more than 2 hours 21 minutes. What has been documented here in the research report is that an average user the average usage of an average user of social media is around 2 hours 21 minutes, which is a figure I don't believe. And as I said, ask yourself, and perhaps all of us are almost bordering on the level of addiction, and we'll talk about that also in the coming slides, that where is all this heading. Though it started, social media communication started because we could communicate to each other in a more effective, real-time manner, where there could be, where I have the opportunity to also express my thoughts in a written manner or in audio or by way of images or by way of a video. Social media allowed me these different ways of communication with the intent that two people will remain connected to each other, and as and when required, they will communicate. Now it's completely reversed. This communication addiction has gone to a level where we need now apps to tell us from to stop communicating. So we are at that level right now, that we also need technology to actually monitor and regulate the way we use technology, the way we are spending time on social media. Another figure that I will point out in this slide is the 63.9%, which says 63.9% of the global population is using social media. It has taken care of the digital divide. Perhaps this number will be slightly lesser when it comes to India, because maybe the penetration of social media may not be at the same level everywhere. But we can safely assume that the penetration of the social media users are around 60 to 65% worldwide. Go to the next. I just want to set the context, with all these slides. I want you to understand that where did we start, where are we heading, where are we right now. We are all users of social media. The question is, are we smart users of these social media, or is it the social media that is driving us? Is it the social media that is forcing us to form certain habits? Is it the social media who is manipulating us? Is it that I sometimes wonder, that what I'm speaking, what I'm thinking, are they my real, original, genuine thoughts? Or is it because I'm getting influenced by the information that gets thrown at me by social media? So this is a question that I want all the people who have joined this training program to ask themselves, who is driving whom? Is technology driving us, or are we driving technology, or have we already become slaves of technology? And this is the right time we are having this conversation, because once AI embeds or entrenches deeply into our lives before even we know about it, we are going to be completely manipulated by technology. So this could be the right time to just sit up and take notice and see how we can adjust user behavior so that we don't become slaves of technology. I don't Let's go to the next slide. I don't have the picture in front of me right now, but I'd like to tell you a lovely meme that I saw, when I was just going through the training material for today. So it showed on one side, uh, all human beings are glued onto their phone. So you have a phone in front of you and you're like constantly looking at it, and you go to any public space and you will see most of the people are glued onto their devices. So the meme said that it is the human beings who are now hooked onto the devices. They have stopped learning, and now it is the devices who have started learning. So they have started learning about you, about how you function, what are your likes and dislikes, um, how you can be profiled and to be can be used for commercial exploitation by large commercial entities that are present worldwide, and they're just getting bigger and bigger every day, and they're getting bigger at your and my cost, is something that one needs to remember. I know I do tend to talk a lot about risks, ideally so because I'm a lawyer practicing in this space. So I have seen the dirty side of social media, the dirty sides of the effects of social media it has on people, young adults, young children, and how they are getting exploited and drawn into this. But just a step back, and let's see the amazing benefits of social media. You cannot undermine that social media has transformed our world for the better. The only question is, are we able to use it with adequate knowledge of its risks,
Hmm.
adequate knowledge of how it is going to affect us detrimentally? And I think programs like this hopefully will make a difference in our outlook as to how we are going to use this social media.
Sure.
So let's just look at these benefits one by one. If I have to start with, we go to the next. I think you'll have it there. If we just look at Let's go to another. I have a lovely infographic on which it is easier. One more. So if we have to look at, let's look at it one by one. Let's look at education. How has social media transformed the way education is delivered and education is consumed? And I think the most important way in which social media has almost disrupted education is we have given students an independent voice. The way students have come together, and social media allows them to not only express themselves, form communities, and their voices get amplified and that they get heard, is a very positive impact social media has had on education. Also, an access to knowledge which is done in a very democratic manner. So, anybody having access to an internet connection has access to the most rich resource of education at either no cost or at a very low cost. And that is how education has been democratized, if I can say so. Otherwise, which was almost a privilege to a certain people who could have access to very good quality education, internet and social media has totally changed this. Another very positive way social media has affected education is collaborative learning. The way there can be peer to peer research, the way there can be discussion forums, the way people can connect and discuss about their thoughts, their research, their findings, their assumptions, and how that output will be much richer than what you would have done if you were working in a silo. It really has made a difference. And another third thing that I always felt about how it has disrupted education is the availability of discussion forums. See, earlier we all knew that everything was about instructional training. And now we all know it is participative training or participative learning. It's not even training, it's participative learning where each person learns by participating and from the experiences and the knowledge of the other person who's in that group. And social media really has made this very easily possible because those platforms are easily available. Again, there is almost no entry barrier in terms of cost, accessibility, etc. So, having these amazing discussion forums for not only students but teachers, academicians, researchers has really made a great difference and a very positive impact on education. I'm not even going to talk about edtech, but edtech also has been a great game changer as to how education is delivered across these public platforms. But that is something that one really needs to consider as to the positive impact of social media. Let me pick up something else. Let's look at civic engagement, or let me call it as governance. So the moment I say civic engagement, again, for a citizen, a social media is a very good platform to express in a very democratic manner what his thoughts are, maybe also review public services, talk about how the government is functioning or government departments are delivering services. So it gives a very big platform for citizens to engage in a democratic conversation. So I'm going to talk about the downside of this also, but right now let's talk of this positive way in which people can use social media. At the same time, on the other side, the government can use the same, or the government departments can use the same platform to communicate with the citizen. So you want to communicate a certain notification, a certain scheme that has been announced for the benefit of the public, certain grievances which have been addressed and taken care of, certain public utilities which have been improved for the benefit of the citizens. All those communications now can happen because of the availability of social platforms or social media. We have also seen the way in which the civic engagement or the government participation has really been able to mobilize uh, groups of people in, say, crisis situations. For example, disaster management. There were floods, there was a COVID response, and social media really has made a big difference in how it played a very, very vital role in addressing these issues when it came to civic engagement. And one last example of this is how it also facilitated movements like Me Too. If there was no social media, Me Too movement would not have been as big as the way it did become. I am not commenting on the good or the bad part of how Me Too went, but we are trying to understand that even for public mobilization, social media platforms always play a very, very vital role. Let us look at economic engagement or economic empowerment. Digital services or e-commerce and digital marketing has been a game changer for everybody, especially the youth. Look at the number of young people exploiting the digital market and making money the way none of us had ever imagined. Traditional businesses, traditional professions, the kind of returns one has by following or embracing traditional professions and businesses, and the returns that the youngsters are getting by embracing technology to give their services or talk about products has been a total game changer. It also has created a very big market where job opportunities are now very easily available, accessible, and one can apply for varied kinds of jobs across social media. At just like a click of a button, or just by having access to that keyboard and the internet connection. Last but not the least, let's talk of health and how health services, the dissemination of health services because of the availability again of social media platforms has been again mind boggling. The kind of research that is available, medical research that is available, the kind of information on insurance that is available on social media platforms. Um, uh, the way health education is available on social media platforms has really, really been a game changer. If you have any questions on this, on the positive impact, I'm sure I'll have some time to take it under in the Q&A session. Go to the next. I think understanding risks is also equally important when we are talking of the use of social media. I have put this mental health impact right in the beginning. Why? Because that is our struggle right now. We have already seen extreme cases. We have seen some extreme cases in Pune where children, especially children addicted to gaming, have had to be hospitalized because of the psychological and the mental effects it has had on them. We have all seen children committing suicide because of the very violent and manipulative games children become addicted to on the net. And all this information is part of the social media revolution. And those are really, really some areas of concern. Another a downside and how it affects our mental health is the compare and despair effect. Everybody is beautiful, everybody is rich, everybody is having adventurous trips, everybody seems to be have a ball of a lifetime. Everybody is partying, everybody is doing so well in their professions, everybody seems to be having such a colorful, exciting, and a varied life. And then you look at yourself and you feel, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not enough, I don't have a life like theirs. And that is what is pushing us And I say us because whether you like it or not, and whether you accept it or not, it is affecting all of us. It is really eating into our daily lives, that every time we are on social media, there is a certain negative impact it is creating on our brains. The second phenomena one needs to understand is the echo chambers and polarization. Sometimes it's almost confused as it's a good thing. Let's say how these OTT platforms give you suggestions. So you watch this, so we think you like this. You have, or social media platforms give you suggestions. Just as an example, you can read these books. What happens is, because you have accessed a certain type of content, the algorithms are giving you the same content over and over again, and it is reinforcing your existing beliefs. See, for a even a parallel growth as a human being, uh, a growth where a human being is better read, is exposed to diverse opinions, is exposed to diverse cultures, it is exposed to diverse discussions, is not happening because you will be pushed. The content will be pushed on you based on your preferences that you have accessed earlier. And that is what is making people more and more, almost polarized to a certain thought or an idea. You are just not able to fathom that a person who is not like you is also okay. Everybody wants that, because you have been fed with the same information, at some point of time you actually start believing that what you are doing is the absolute truth, and it is just the way the world should be, and that diverse exposure and perspective is just lost. And that is, I think, what is really creating the lot of problems that today we are facing. And that is why I've included this point of, it actually increases political and social division, because you are getting more and more polarized on one thought. Not only that, you actually start believing that that is the best situation one can be, which means you are judging the other person for who he is, what that person is doing, the way he is conducting his life, or his social interaction. And that really is really very detrimental to a healthy democracy. And those are very big harms of social media that one just has to be mindful about. The third, not less at all, is the misinformation and fake news. Sometimes or let me say most of the times, misinformation is by design. Who will benefit from misinformation? Political parties, religious groups, let me say religious fanatic groups, who want to perpetuate a certain belief, who want to perpetuate a certain narrative, and who wants to manipulate the public at large for certain benefits. Misinformation is a weapon that these people now have to influence us. And I think that is the biggest problem social media is facing right now. Then there are lesser harms of misinformation. You will see a lot of celebrity news which are fake. You will also see a lot of medical information that is fake. Medicines to grow hair, or medicines for weight loss, or this magic medicine for something, age-defying procedures, and all these different magical remedies that one gives. You also see a lot of information around financial investments, and where you should invest to double your money, etc. But that definitely is a downside. Cyberbullying is very rampant. I don't know how many of you from the audience are dealing with young children, or are educators who are dealing with minors, but please be very mindful that there are several research papers which show more than 70% of our children have been victims of cyberbullying, and they are unable to call it out, they are unable to label it as bullying, they are unable to report it. Because another side of all this is we do not have effective communication with our children. Neither the parents nor the teachers nor the counselors, the divide, the gap between the communication is large. Sometimes we feel we do not understand the space in which they are operating, the youngsters. Obviously they also feel the same because of, again, the digital divide internet has created between us. We all know that their language has totally changed, and
Hmm.
there's so much content also available online that the way they talk and the way we talk is really very different, and it's almost like they're communicating in some foreign language. So cyberbullying is a reality. Suicides because of cyberbullying is a reality. Violence, sexual harassment, death threats, rape, sexual violence, misogynistic hate speech directed towards either young girls or even women is very, very, very rampant. I just want a full session just to talk on it,
Right.
because it is really something that is eating into our society. Eh, Uh, the victims, as I said, are not only helpless, but sometimes they don't even identify this as bullying. They think this is a way of life, they need to deal with it. And those who can't really, they're affected by severe depression, their academic performance goes low. And we all, I feel as a society, we are so mentally wired for victim blaming. So the moment we feel somebody is actually under some pressure, our first reaction is, especially I see parents do that. I told you not to do this. I told you not to use internet. I told you not to use social media. See now what has happened. So it is not about showing empathy. It is not about understanding what the child is going through, but immediately taking a stand that you were right and he's wrong or she's wrong. That just just increases the divide. But let me tell you, online harassment, cyberbullying, online sexual harassment, to the extent of sexual trafficking. So, online trafficking amongst children, which sometimes also lead to real life trafficking, is a reality, and one really needs to be mindful of that. Last but not the least, and perhaps it is lesser understood, it is what is happening to our data when all these social media platforms are entered into our lives, and really, really very intrusively, if I can say so. So what are these social media companies doing? They are taking our personal data. One,
Hmm.
they will have a privacy policy which will say, this is the information that we are taking and this is how we are going to use it. We are not reading the privacy policies. Even as Indians, we really are not very aware of our privacy rights. So, though we have this legislation come in, a lot of work needs to be done just to increase awareness so that you become aware of the value of your personal information. So, let me try and put this simply, what is personal information? Personal information is information that is used to identify you. So if you have a set of data points, it actually, and if the data points are, clubbed together, you can actually build a persona around it. In one of the research papers that I read recently, there was one data point which said, how much of information do you think social media companies have about you? And how many data points? For example, say I have a Facebook account, how many things will Facebook know about me? And the number is really scary. The number is anything between 5,000 to 8,000 data points, which means even I don't know that much about myself, but that much an outsider company, a private organization, knows this much about you. And we saw that how misuse happened with Cambridge Analytica, which is again documented that all this personal information was used to build profiles and was used to manipulate the voters, and eventually the election was manipulated, which also gives you it's scary, right? Because the question is, are you even electing a government in a democratic way, or are these social media companies influencing you to an extent that your opinion is also no longer your opinion? Another way in which the your personal information is used is to perpetuate fraud on you. You will have so many instances of digital arrest, targeted financial frauds, targeted frauds where you've been sent a certain message and you've been asked to pay money. All this happens because so much of your information is available outside. We'll go to the next. I think I have a few more before I talk about legislation. I know I will run out of time, so what I'll do is let's skip a few, one or two slides, so there will be time for questions. I've already talked about this, so I won't spend much time here. I've already talked about this at some point of time. Let me talk of algorithmic influence and then let's go to a bit of regulation. Let's go to the next. So, when I say algorithmic influence, what is happening in the social media that we are using is there are algorithms working in the back which is analyzing all the information that you are generating. What is the content you are putting up on social media? Uh, which are the posts that you are liking? On what are you spending more time? Um, what are the posts that you are deleting? Which are the posts that you are blocking? You do all that, right? Because there's also the social media platforms are urging you to do this. Why they are doing it? Because they want to monitor your behavior. It is no longer just about your information, your name, date of birth. It's no longer that. It is about your habits. It is about how you use this medium. It is about how you interact with this medium. And just on another note, there are so many algorithms which are also monitoring student behavior like this. That what are the students doing when they are consuming education? uh, where are where are they putting in more time? Where are they distracted? Why are their numbers the way they are? How are they giving examinations eventually, so that even students at some point of time become are manipulated by the edtech companies. We go ahead.
Next slide.
So these algorithms are in a way for our benefit, but at the same time, they are doing much more harm than what they have been designed for. And that is why having control over your personal information now becomes so important. You're going to have different sessions on data privacy, etc. So I'm just trying to create the base for it. So the amount of personal information that the social media companies are capturing, at some point of time, there has to be a regulation on it. They should be able to tell you exactly what they're going to do with your data and whether they can do it or not. And your the ultimate ownership of all this has to lie with you. You have to decide, or you can decide whether this information, which is personal in nature, whether you want that social media company to use it or to monetize it. That is why we have the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which says that without consent, all this cannot be done. Social media companies can do this for research. They want to build better platforms, more reactive platforms. Do it, but don't do it on personal information basis. Anonymize it, use it without identification, and the same information can be used for betterment of their services. So, what has India done in terms of legislation? We have a couple of legislations that govern social media. And let's go to the next slide. And one of the legislations, we go to the one more. So you will see that at some point of time, the Information Technology Act has made social media companies responsible responsible for what they are doing, and those are called as intermediary guidelines. A social media company established in India is called as an intermediary, and an intermediary will come under a regulatory ambit of under or the a legislative ambit of the Information Technology Act. And I will just give you one example, and then I'm going to stop because I want you to ask a few questions. One thing that you can remember what how social media companies need to behave in India. For example, there is a AI generated image which shows a morphed image of a lady with where her privacy is getting violated, either because the image is sexual in nature or it just shows her in bad light. Uh, the victim then has a right to write to the intermediary for a takedown, and the intermediary is expected to take down that information within 36 hours. For all other information that may cause harm to an individual, a takedown should happen after a court order. But there is a provision that has been made under law that such information can be removed from the internet with a court order. And that is why sometimes we also talk about the right to be forgotten when it comes to the internet, and that is also a separate right which is at times getting enforced by court. So this is something that you can really remember as to how social media companies have to comply with for protecting citizens. Also, the law asked all social media companies to appoint a grievance redressal officer within India, because, as I said earlier, all these are foreign companies, and very, very difficult at times asking them to comply with the Indian law. And that is why we had an amendment come in which said that each of these social media companies have to appoint a grievance redressal officer so that even the law enforcement agencies can reach to them for collecting evidence if there is a crime. And also people who have been let's say, like a simple example, that somebody creates a false account under your name. There has to be somebody accountable within the company where you can write for grievance redressal, and that is a mandatory provision now. And last but not the least, the government also told the social media companies that if they come across any information which contains child pornography, or we call it CSAM, child sexually abusive material, then they have to have technology tools in place so that it can be removed immediately. Don't wait for a court order. To actively monitor the social media space and remove all sorts of content which shows child pornography. Let me stop here so that I know otherwise we may not have enough time for question answers. Maybe you can just go to the next slides one by one. We'll just keep the slides there and then let's go for the questions. Thank you very much. I hope it was useful.
Yes, ma'am, it was useful, but we do not have enough time left in the session, so won't be able to ask much questions. But very briefly, as your closing statement also, I would like to ask this question: how social media promotes the concepts of inclusion, diversity and equity?
So, short answer to this is social media actually is a great leveler. The social media will not have any barriers in terms of who can participate and who cannot. It is a democratic medium where each one of you can express their opinions.
Right.
The problem with social media is that because there are also bad actors, you will see a lot of misogynistic hate speech available.
Absolutely.
If I have to just give you one example of how women don't participate in open discussions to the level that they should be, because they are always targeted by hate speech or rape threats. And that is why we need very robust regulation in place that will regulate the bad actors so that it really becomes a safe space for all of us to communicate.
Absolutely. That's the motto of our training program as well, to create a space that is safe for everybody to use. of course, in the context of social media itself. So thank you so much, Vaishali ma'am, for your time and contribution to this wonderful session on day one, where we talked about the digital public square, understanding social media and its impact. You certainly covered all the important points, and the session was no less than an eye-opener. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So viewers, here I'm going to close the session because we are running short of time. But yes, to apprise you all once again of what we discussed, this was day one session under the umbrella theme of our training program, Online Training on Social Media Safety, brought to you by NCERT, CIET, NCERT, in collaboration with the Cyber Peace Foundation, that is CPF. So I'm closing the session over here. Please watch it if you want to attempt the assessment later. And as far as some other updates are concerned, it's time for me to tell you about the textbooks which are available on Amazon, Flipkart and NCERT website. I'm specifically talking about grade 4 and 7 textbooks. So please purchase your copies now. And now let's take a quick look at the schedule. What's all you've been watching since morning. So this is the entire list of programs you have been watching since morning, and in a short while from now, you can watch a program Sahyog, where we will be talking about some important learning outcomes. The topic is right there in front of you. So do participate in the session with your questions, suggestions and feedback. This is me, Harpreet Kaur, taking leave of you, but you stay tuned. Namaskar.